Yes, people, how we all doing? So, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about prison riots, which is happening at the minute, and that is due to the massive overcrowding inside the prison estate at the minute. So, they're coming up with emergency plans. They're already doing early release, and to start off with, it was 12 days early release, so coming to the end of the sentence. But the prison system is that much on its knees at the minute. They then went on to do 60-day, releasing prisoners 60 days early. But now, it's said because of large-scale disorder, prisons reach capacity and governors call for release of inmates who have served just 40% of the sentence. Now, when I was reading up on this article, there's only 700 spaces left in the prison system. There's 1,400 altogether, but what I may say is 700 of them is in the male prison estate, so there's 700 spaces left for male prisoners. And there's that amount of prisoners coming into the system nearly every day or every few days. Now, what it's actually saying in here is that there's mini riots breaking out in the prisons up and down the country throughout England and Wales, as overcrowding is at an all-time high. So, in total, there's around about 89,000 prison spaces. At the minute, it says on here, as of last Friday, 87,360 people were in prison in England and Wales. So, if you can imagine that, what's going to happen when it reaches maximum capacity? There's nowhere else to put them. And at the minute, because of this overcrowding, they're understaffed. A lot of staff are on sick or not turning in for whatever reason, or people don't want to work in these, as it's been described, rat-infested shitholes, that they're understaffed and overstaffed, as in prisoners, or overpopulated for the prisoners. So what happens when it's understaffed and there's too many inmates? Well, for starters, they're missing out on their association time, which is exercise and association, which every prisoner is entitled to whilst in prison, even if it's 1 hour a day out of your cell. But because they're understaffed, they're not getting any of this. They're going days and weeks without association, and this is what was happening in the COVID conditions. But in the COVID conditions, you can understand it because everyone was on lockdown. There was no other options. You had to do it. There was no middle ground. Everyone was locked down. Prisoners were locked down. But now, because of this crisis, this is, for the prisoners and the staff, no fault of their own. But these are the ones that's having to deal with the crisis. It's all right, people out here on the outside looking in and hearing what's going on. But these are the ones that's having to deal with it on the front line. The staff and the prisoners, because the prisoners are suffering it, and so are the staff, because they're the ones that's having to deal with it. And what is happening, like it says here, there's riots up and down the country. But if you imagine you're banged up 4 or 5 days without getting out for any association whatsoever, you're getting claustrophobic, and this is the reasons why people aren't getting rehabilitated, and there's kick-offs up and down the country. But goes on to say here, I'll just read a couple of points when I was going through this. So it says, Mr. Fairhurst, who is... The Prison Governors Association estimates that there are only 700 spaces. That's what I just mentioned. But Mr. Wheatley warned that overcrowding was causing fewer prisoners to access rehabilitative programs, including education courses for substance misuse, meaning they are more likely to reoffend on release. Justice Secretary Alex Chalk said in October, that's when he launched the scheme, and that's when he expanded it to 60 days in March, 70 in May, and it's still in a deep crisis. Mr. Fairhurst said prison officers wanted the new government to make a brave and bold decision and do something rapid to stop the overcrowding getting any worse. The Prison Reform Trust said the current situation is the worst capacity crisis seen since the tail end of the last Labour government in 2007, which also triggered emergency release measures. So, as you can imagine, the pressure that Labour is going to be under, because Labour is now in government, and they have got to deal with this crisis before it gets out of control even more, because as it says in this report here, that, like I've just mentioned, it's a staff who's suffering on the front line, and the staff are being assaulted by the inmates because of what's happening. The inmates are frustrated, not knowing what's going on, and the staff are getting the brunt of this. So there needs to be decisive action, very quick, to put all this to, I cannot say it to an end, because it'll never come to an end, but the only way that they're going to sort this sort of problem out is by building bigger prisons, more prisons, which they should have been doing for the last decade, because the prisons at the minute, more so the old Victorian prisons, most of these are your remand prisons which are in the cities like Durham, what's the ones down in, is it Leeds, Wandsworth, all these remand prisons, local prisons, or the old Victorian ones. And this is where, when you get sent to prison from the courts, you go direct to your local prison, and these are the ones that are described as rat-infested shitholes that are overcrowding, and a lot of the people that are in there that are on remand, that haven't been sentenced, they come in fresh off the streets, and these are the ones that are the most volatile, the ones that are most likely to disrupt the system. And these are the prisons that are most likely to go up in riots, as it's mentioned on here. So when the prison's in a crisis like this, it's already said it needs decisive action, but they need to sort something out quick. And to be honest with you, with 700 spaces left, the only way of easing this crisis is by letting out the ones that are recalled to prison for not even committing further offences. They've been recalled to prison for sometimes very petty things like missing appointments and not obeying to their licence conditions. But again, there's about 3,000 IPP prisoners that should be eligible, or well over the tariff, should be eligible for release. That is one way of easing this overcrowding, is by getting these IPPs back out. Make sure, as they say, they're ready to be released, which the majority of them probably are. They've been in prison for that long. All they want to do now is just progress and move on with their life and be given a chance to get out in society and live with the rest of us out here and be given a fair shout. Because, as it's been mentioned, the IPPs was abolished in 2012. There's just been a massive debate in the House of Lords. A lot of things are changing for the IPPs. We're just waiting for them to be implemented, but this will, in my eyes, ease the overcrowding massively. If the IPPs, the ones that aren't an imminent danger to the public, are released, which the majority of them are, ready for it, then that, in my eyes, would ease this prison overcrowding and stop anything from escalating further. But I just thought I would bring that to the attention of my subscribers, because obviously a prison channel, you love to hear what's going on inside the prisons, and I'm keeping people updated. So this is what's happening at the minute. The prison system is absolutely on its arse. The inmates aren't getting rehabilitated. The staff shortages. People aren't getting on the courses that they need to show or try and rehabilitate. And they're just left in there to rot, to not do anything. They're left in there. They're supposedly trying, or they're in there to be rehabilitated. There's no rehabilitation going on in my eyes when the prison system is just keeping them banged up 24 hours a day for 4 and 5 days on end. But this emergency release, when they're letting these prisoners back out onto the street, it is saying that a large proportion of these are being recalled within a matter of weeks straight back into custody because they haven't been given the chance to get housed. A lot of these inmates have lost the housing when they've been sent to prison. So when they're coming up for release, they need to be found accommodation, but there is no accommodation. There's also a crisis going on out here in the community, a housing crisis. There's not enough houses in the country to house the amount of people that is actually in the country. And that is due to a lot of the immigrants coming into the country and taking up the housing. And again, there's not a crisis just going on in the prison system. There's a crisis going on throughout the country. Like I've just mentioned, for people getting housed, the amount of people that's homeless on the streets. But these prisoners that are coming up for early release, they're being made homeless straight away. So what happens? They're being made homeless. They haven't got a suitable accommodation, so they're getting recalled back to prison because obviously license conditions, you need suitable accommodation. So to me, it's just nothing is working at the minute. Hopefully the new government that's just been brought in, Labour, gets this crisis sorted out and give inmates a fair chance on release instead of just being left to fend for themselves and try and get accommodation when they get released where they can't. It used to be 40 odd pound, used to get released. Maybe it's around about £60 now you get when you're released from prison. £60 won't even get you a night in a Premier Inn. So what chances have you got on release if you've got no support and you've got nothing there to help you move on in life? But again, I'll leave that one there for now. People, hopefully you did enjoy that big content. I will be uploading plenty more videos soon, so keep an eye out. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, go down, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll not miss another video. Thanks for watching, everyone.